This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. I have Hector Collazo. Hector is the president of Navteca. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Otto. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. I really appreciate some of the conversation that you're having on your previous episodes around innovation, leadership, talking about taking calculated risk, so especially in the DMV area. So I'm very excited to dive into some of the topics that I'm really passionate about, especially when, the technology that Navteca is using to solve real problems, both in the public and private sectors as well. So looking forward to a great conversation today.
Yeah, thank you. And before we hit record, I think Hector is the most research guest I've ever had on the show. So thank you for that, Hector.
Of course, absolutely, absolutely.
So before we go into your personal and business story, in case the audience hasn't heard of Navteca, what do you folks there do, please?
Yeah, so Navteca is a technology company that specializes in cloud solutions, artificial intelligence, data science, and visualization, as well as software development. So those are kind of the main five core kind of capabilities that we refer to. Within those capabilities, we definitely have differentiators, right? So I'll dive into those in a little bit. But particularly, we support government agencies like NASA, NOAA, USGS, and we're well known for blending that science and innovation to build like intuitive, mission-focused solutions that, help agencies make sense of complex data, right? So when you're analyzing data, especially when you talk about air science or special operations, you need to have that technology company that can translate that in something that it can be consumed. So that's kind of what we're specialized. And I'll definitely will talk about some of the projects that we have, some of the very particularly differentiators that we have around cloud, solutions and things like that. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we really do.
That's great. Especially, I can't wait to get into. You mentioned the innovation, and now with sort of AI, who has been on the forefront the last few years, and what you folks are developing to help our government, right? As much as you can share, I'm sure. But before that, are you originally from this area, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Northern Virginia?
So I'm not, right? So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico in a small town, about 35 minutes south driving distance from San Juan. So a lot of people know San Juan, right? So I come from humble beginnings. I didn't know we didn't have any much money, right? So my mom was a single mom raising three kids. So if you think about, you put yourself in certain situations, that was one of the situations I was put on where I was like, okay, well, I'm little, I need to learn how to fix things, right? And I need to learn how to figure things out. We didn't have the money to pay for getting things fixed. So little do I know that that was paving my affinity to fixing things and go to my engineering field. I didn't know that back then, obviously, right? But that was kind of like I'm thinking about it and I was like, oh, that's why, that's why I decided to go to the engineering field. But to make the long story short, so I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, like I said. So if you're Puerto Rican, it's in your DNA to play baseball, right? So you gotta play baseball. So I played baseball, played basketball. I did boxing too,
Okay.
volleyball, did track, you get it, right? So, but interesting enough, I fell in love with table tennis. Okay. So, and table tennis, I remember back when I was 12 or so, I started getting good. I was like, oh, this is really cool, right? So I'm getting good. And I got the opportunity when I was 12 to represent, as a national team, represent Puerto Rico
Oh, wow.
internationally, right? So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I went to South America to represent the island, and
Is this like the Junior Olympics, Hector?
not yet. So I
Oh,
went to
okay.
Pan American Games. I went to Latin American Games,
Okay.
and I also went to the World Games as well. But back in the day, it was just friendly competition between South America and the island.
Mm-hmm.
So and I got the opportunity back then in Puerto Rico. They have what they call the Olympic shelter. So, and this is a place where they keep or they bring pro athletes or future Olympians, right? So, and then they bring them all together, and then we go to school together and we train in the different aspects of the, different sports, but we
Hmm.
all train together. So, and I started, working, traveling the world. So did it in high school. And then I got into, that crossroads. Do I go professional or do I actually go to school? And my engineering school, back then I didn't know, but I wanted to study something. And, I didn't want to leave my mom behind or my sisters, right? So I said, I got an offer to play professionally in Sweden, right? So in Europe, in the club there, but I decided to go to school. So then I decided to go to my engineering school. So I went to the University of Puerto Rico at the Bayamón campus, right? And that's where I earned my degree in engineering technology. And right there, when I was, right about to finish, I wanted to give back to the community. So I decided to start teaching in a college. So I was teaching electronics and just kind of sharing my experience of all the stuff that I learned. And I'm the type of person that I feel that knowledge that doesn't get shared is knowledge that get lost, right?
Hmm.
So I wanted to share my knowledge with what I learned to other people, right? So I started teaching in a college, and then I also got plugged in from back then was a company called ITT Federal Systems. And then I started working on a very important mission with the Navy. So that's where my DoD career started. Okay.
Okay.
So I started working for the Navy at the U.S. Naval Station, Roosevelt Roads in Puerto Rico. And I was there for about 3 years. And, it was an amazing mission. The goal there was to make sure that the platform that we were sending overseas or for special missions that were that readiness, was on point, that we're training them, making sure that all the systems were calibrated and things like that. So I did that for about 3 years, and then unfortunately the Navy left the island, right? So they left the island, and my boss back then, his name was Richard Diaz. He was like, "Hey Hector, would you go with the company and support us in Iraq?" So I was like, "Wait a second. So let me think about this for a minute. So you would like me to go to Iraq and work for the same company?" I was like, after a couple of days, I think about it. I said, like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And then I reflect on this other when, some of the episodes that you have about calculated risk and
Yeah.
talking about taking that risk. And you don't know at that point in time, but I in hindsight, it was one of the best things I ever did. So I went to Iraq
Hector,
with
during this time, are we at war? Is this during the war?
absolutely yes,
Okay. All right.
2003, 2004.
Okay.
And so it was crazy, right? Because I had a mission in my head, right? So I knew what I needed to do. So I was doing engineering, and I was a satellite technician, and my mission was, from the company perspective, to go there and replace all the satellite terminals, military to
Hmm.
commercial off the shelf. So I'm bringing commercial technology, replace the military one with commercial, right? And then I was like, okay, my personal mission was I wanted to give some time to the soldiers because they were there for back in the day when you were in the army, the deployments were about 16 months. It's a long time, right?
Hmm.
So I was trying to expedite my installation so that the troops can go back home and have a warm meal, you know, a warm shower, sleep in their own bed, right? So that was my mission. So I travel around Iraq in different areas. But I just want to take the opportunity for those troops out there. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you. It is very interesting when you're back in the States,
Hmm.
all the convenience that we have. When you go out there, we are all one family, right? So in the work and the things that they do and the sacrifice that they do for us, for our freedom and to keep us safe, I mean, hands down. I mean, it is a different experience. And I think that you only know if you are part of it. You know what I mean? Like you don't know how a warm shower it's means when you're in the middle in the desert, right? So So it was an amazing experience. I got to, be part of the Army family. This is when General Sanchez was in theater, right? And that's where in 2003, 2004, that's when we captured Saddam as well.
Uh, how
Mhm.
long were you in Iraq for?
So I was there for 365 days. That's
You counted every
exactly.
single one.
Yes. So 1 year I never left. It was an important mission, and I felt that I wanted to be there as long as I could.
And when you were there, Hector, I know you weren't, military personnel because this was almost like a third party contract with the government, right?
Right.
So as far as security and moving from one place to the other, you hear stories, there's movies, there's books and all this stuff. But as a, I guess, independent, not in the service, how was that for you, that experience as far as, security wise and
So it's interesting that you said that, right? So I would say that one of the things that I have in my head when I first landed there, right? Going back to the risk, so I was like, I sat down on a bench in the middle of nowhere, and I looked, in the middle of the night, looking at the stars, and I just start seeing tracers, right, of bullets going over my head.
mm,
I mean, so um, that is one of the security side. I would say, like, the people that we have around our area, they're working and fighting, but security wise, I felt that we were a family. So the mission of the troops that we have out there, they don't care if you're an American, and they will protect you,
they're
right? So
protected. Yeah.
I felt that way across, all the areas that I visited, right? And the camaraderie, we're just a family. It's amazing. Very different when you're back in the States, obviously. So yeah.
Hector, if I could just for a brief moment go back when you were mentioning table tennis, just because it interests me. And sometimes, as childhood, I think some of the things we learn, some of that we carry into adulthood, right? And you became, as a young athlete, right? One of the best in table tennis in your country, from what it seems like. Um, how'd you even find that sport? Because like you said, in Puerto Rico, the number one sport is baseball, and then second basketball, right? So table tennis, and why'd you like it, and why'd you decide to pursue that? And as far as getting to that level and competing worldwide in that sport, what sacrifices or what did you have to do as a child, as a teenager, to get to certain levels?
Yeah, so I discovered table tennis when I was in middle school. So I was taking PE class, and they have this table in there, right? So we
Uh-huh.
all kids, you know, we all can stand around the table and start just playing, right? And that's how my interest started, right? And then I have a
Okay.
couple of friends that they were really good, and then I started, playing. In I would say that some of the sacrifice that we do, especially when you are trying to get at the elite level, it's some of the time that you spend with your family, your sleep, you don't sleep too much because I mean, when I was in the Olympic shelter, we woke up at 5. We train from 5 a.m. until 7 a.m., then go to class, then you go come back at from 4 to 7 p.m., and then you study and go back to sleep or try
So
to.
from 4 to 7 in the afternoon, also training.
No, no, so yeah, 4 to 7 p.m., correct.
Okay.
Training, twice a day. So we do a lot of the physical training in the morning, and
Okay.
then more on the technical side in the evenings.
Okay. And then after 7, you said you were doing schoolwork.
Schoolwork and then go
Okay.
to sleep. So if you have a lot of homework, you were behind, you gotta finish it, and then after that you go to sleep. But it was lights on at 5 a.m. The proctors will come in, and you gotta be up. So and so that's one of, and obviously, I didn't spend too much time with my family because I was in this school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was away from home. Now, I wasn't living in my house. I was living in quarters with
Yeah.
all Olympic pro athletes.
And
Yeah.
this was, you said, middle school or high school?
This was in high school.
Okay.
So I played middle school, and then at high school, that's where you are allowed to actually go to the Olympic shelter. So you have a little bit more mature and more
Okay.
independent. Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of discipline, even at a young age, in order to become elite at anything, right? And then you said you had a offer to go play at a club in Sweden to Europe.
Yes, so and that's important, right? So and like for the audience, if you have kiddos in any sport, that is what you're building. You're building a great discipline, and that will set you apart when you actually in your professional career.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very important quality to have. especially, if you're very committed. That commitment and sacrifice is there already. So anything that you kind of think about it that you want to achieve, it's there. So you got the discipline that you built when you were little. So yes.
Do you have any children of your own?
Also, I have a big family. Yes, I do. So I have five kiddos and all in sports. And, I have elementary school, middle school, high school, college. And then I have my oldest. She's actually in the military as an officer. She's in the U.S. Air Force, right?
Okay.
But, I didn't know. So we travel quite a bit, and because one of the things that I didn't mention when I was in Iraq, that's where I met my other half. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the story, right? So,
Yeah.
but so now
Was she in the
my
service?
she was in the service, so I met
Okay.
her in Iraq, and she is the main reason when like that I moved to the States. Okay. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so but I do have my five kiddos with the sports or whatnot. But one thing, going back to the story, when I left Iraq, I came to Puerto Rico, so I started supporting the Coast Guard. So now, I had experience with the Navy, I supported the Army. Now I'm supporting the Coast Guard, doing engineering for all the communication system that they had around the island,
Mm-hmm.
helping with the support and maintenance. And at that point, that's what my other half, my wife now, she goes like, "Hey, if you want this to work, you got to move to the States."
Where
Yeah,
was she living?
so she was living in Las Vegas, Nevada. She
Okay.
was living at Nellis Test and Training Range, or Nellis Air Force Base. And so, and I was like, going back to what we talked about, calculated risk. I said, like, oh man, the things that we do for love, right? So,
Yeah.
so I said, I packed all my stuff, Otto, and I left the island. I didn't have nothing, right? So I
Okay.
went to Las Vegas, and I worked. I was blessed to be able to support the U.S. Air Force now at Nellis Test and Training Range. So
Okay.
that's when my professional States career started, right? So I was in Puerto Rico, I was in Iraq, now I'm in the States. And that's where a lot of the doors opened for me. So I started, moving up to the ranks. I was at Nellis Test and Training Range for 12 years. And, I want to take this opportunity to thank, one of my previous bosses, his name was Neil Ongs. He gave me the opportunity to be, move up through the ranks and actually I was leading a big team at Nelly Stetson Training Range that they were in charge of 200 million acres of communication. And I mean by that, I don't want to oversimplify it, but you're talking about air traffic control, air traffic, air to ground radios, communication data switching systems, um, any of the encryption devices that encrypt data from point A to point B, videos, feeds, etc. So all the FAA stuff I was managing and maintaining for Nellis. So it's a big deal, 24/7 operations. So I enjoy it tremendously. Great mission. So, and we were helping the troops, train. So I don't know if you have heard of the audience have heard about Red Flag, but that was one of the exercises that we support at Nellis,
Okay.
very famous, and there's a couple movies around Red Flag as well. But I had the opportunity to support, and it was great, So, but since my wife was in the military, right, she got orders to move to Texas. So talking about, technology and being able to adapt, I was thinking about it, man, I have a career, 12 years at Nellis, and now we're moving to San Antonio. I got to start from scratch. So for those out there in technology, you probably know this already. You got to adapt and evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and that's what I did. So I was doing a lot of engineering communications, air to ground radio, stuff like that. But then in Texas, back then, they were very, very focused on cybersecurity. So they
Okay.
have a very, very excellent program in cybersecurity. So I was like, okay, well, now I'm moving to Texas and I'm going to focus on cybersecurity. So I took that opportunity to learn, that is a very hard field, but it opened my eyes about the cyber warriors now. So I'm doing the Air Force. Now I'm in the cyber, environment. I was like, oh my goodness. So their mission, it's nonstop. It's a 24/7 type of thing, right? So you only the enemy or the threats actors, they only need to be successful one time in order to get your data. you as a defender, you have to be successful 100%. And that's a big deal, right? So um, anyway, so I appreciate the mission there. I got the opportunity to work with the U.S. Cyber Emergency Response Team, at Lackland Security Hill. So it was great. I mean, great experience, and I was working for this company, Agile Defense, and at that point, my wife retired from the Air Force, and Agile Defense gave me the opportunity to move to DMV. So that's how I got to the DMV order. So
Okay.
Agile Defense moved me. It was my first time in the East Coast, and my wife was like, I asked my wife, "Hey, are you okay if we move to the DMV area?" She goes, "We only moved like 12 times. What's one more?" Absolutely, do it, right? So we moved quite a bit in the military, and so I ended up here in DMV area and started working for Agile Defense for about 6 years. And that's where I built so I was running all the innovation teams, Agile Defense, the solutions teams. I was the director of technology, all the IT systems and whatnot. So I did and helped the company grow. And then after 6 years, going back to some of the lessons learned that you have spoken in previous episodes, right? For the audience, when you graduate from college, relationships, they are so, so important, very important. And you gotta cultivate those relationships because they will yield fruits, so I learned that very much so early in my career. And I have a relationship with a friend, and they asked me, "Hey, are you willing to move and help?" And the other company is a mid-tier company. There are about 1,000 employees. When I joined Mr. Bob Lawfield at Seven Tech, can you help us? So I became their CTO there, and then I was kind of there for 2 years and did what is it, the all the vision, kind of working with the proposal work, solutioning, and things like that. And after 2 years, going back again to relationship, I met Mr. Bill Williams, and he is the CEO for IPTA. Okay, so and when I was with IPTA, he's an entrepreneurship guy, and he's very focused on helping other people as well. And he was the push that I needed to pursue some other dreams that I had.
Hmm.
And that's where I realized, you know what? I met Shayna and Ramon. They are the founders of Navteca, right?
Hmm.
So I met them, and I had Bill in my head saying, "Hey, you should pursue your dreams," but it sucks that you're leaving me, right? So it was a great experience. So and then I was looking at other companies that I want to be part of the ownership team or partner, right? And Navteca was the perfect company for me. I mean, Ramon and Shane have built a fantastic foundation on innovation.
Hmm.
So, and I got the opportunity, and here I am. So I'm their new president of Navteca. So that's kind of my whole story, Otto. It's a long story, but I try to summarize a little bit. So
No,
yeah.
no, thank you, Hector, and congratulations on your new role there as president.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
You mentioned about pursuing some of your dreams. So, what were some of your dreams that you were looking, that you wanted, that you were seeking?
Yes, so I want to make a difference, right? I wanted to support, I learned early when I was supporting the Navy, the Army and the DoD, different branches, right? Their mission and keeping our country safe and our freedom, that's what I want to do. So that was one of my goals. I want to be able to continue support my dreams and be mission focused. So Nafteca is bringing me that. And now I have, with Shane and Ramon, I have an opportunity to drive that very much so, right? So, and then my other dream was be part owner of a company. So,
That's a
and
big one.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, you know this, right? So you started your company, I think about after 10 years or 12 years, with your industry, and then you
Hmm.
said, "Hey, I want to go on my own." And that's a big step. So that was kind of one of my major dreams was, "Hey, I want to make a difference. I want to do good, and then I want to help other people, and then I want to own my company." So, yes.
That's great. So, and that's great because sometimes I have conversations with people as far as ownership, and it, it's there. There are so many benefits. I mean, obviously, there's the pros and cons to anything, right? There's the good and the bad, but as far as ownership, it's your owner. It's now part of it. At least something belongs to you. Whatever percentage, whatever equity stake you have. which is something is better than nothing. And even that, for example, which what I do a lot is transaction work, like advisory work with commercial real estate on a day to day. And that's great. That's fee income. That can be like your salary, someone's salary, right? It's just I don't have a salary. But the biggest thing is also ownership, besides your company. But my business is commercial real estate, so ownership in these assets, in these commercial properties, right? Because that's something that keeps on giving. That you don't have to clock in at 9 or leave at 5 if you have a W-2. That's something that while you're asleep, it's producing for you and throwing cash flow, hopefully, right? That's the end goal. Similar to ownership in a company, because you have employees there as well working when you're not there, right?
Right, and and that's very important, right? So you have that passive the passive income that you're talking about, but then additionally, you get the opportunity to help other people and impact them in a very meaningful way because you have that, you know, I wouldn't use the word power, but you have that particular resource available for them. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's very important to me. So we want to help other people be successful and kind of share our experience. What have been our lessons learned? You know what? We gotta fail. We always fail. We fail daily, right? It's the idea is what do you learn from those experiences and how do you share that to make other people also better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all get better. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the whole my mantra and what I like, and Navteca it's giving me that opportunity.
I agree. It's always leading with service. I mean that's probably the number one reason why I even started this show 4 or 5 years ago. The DMV Business Show was just leading with service, and it's funny because a lot of people in the industry were almost saying, well, "Why are you wasting your time with this? Why are you even doing this? What does this have to do with commercial real estate?" And yeah, maybe it has zero to do with it, but it's the best. One of the best decisions I've ever made as far as my business in my career, and yeah. So it's always leading with service, and things will happen eventually, right? Hopefully.
Well, like we were chatting a little bit earlier about, is that little thing, that little push that someone need, and you're bringing that to them, right? So you never know who you're helping with your content, right?
Yeah.
But if somebody's watching that episode and they watch my episode or somebody else, right? And said, you know what? That makes total sense. I should pursue my dream, and that was the push that they needed in order to actually pursue their dreams. That then your job is done, right? That's kind of the idea of, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, but most important, the stuff that you're doing is amazing, right? So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you, Hector. Thank you. Very kind. So when you moved to Texas, you were doing something totally different prior to that in Vegas, and you had to sort of reskill, relearn cybersecurity. How was that experience for you now? Did you have to go to school, take some online classes or some other classes? And, was it easier to get your foot in the door knowing that you do have previous experience, but in something different?
So I would say that I had to study a lot. So for those cybersecurity professionals, so if you are not in the cybersecurity field and you're trying to take the CISSP test, which is one of the I'll say in my opinion, right, some of the hardest tests if you are not a cybersecurity expert, right?
Oh, really?
So
What
it's
is it? You said CIS?
CISSP is a cyber security cyber information security system professional
Okay. Okay.
certified, right? And so it is a 6 hour test. Back in the day it was 6 hour test, 250 questions, okay? And
Okay.
it talks about all kind of cybersecurity at a very broad level, not too deep, but you got to understand the field. So long story short, you have to study a lot, you got to learn, but if you are up to the challenge and going back to the discipline, that I learned through my career, and I like to learn. So I wouldn't say that it was easy, but it was attainable. Yes, and then that is a good experience for those that are pursuing a different career field. If you adapt and you study, you can make it. It's great. And now I have a different perspective from now I know cybersecurity, the importance of, when you talk about multi-factor authentication. So people, what is that, right? That is also it's a method to protect your credentials, as an example, right? So Again, it's just different field. It was very challenging, but it was very, I'll say, from the life uh journey experience, right? When I can share that with my kiddos about, and I know now about cybersecurity and how we should protect our systems, right? Which is a big deal.
So you can be in a totally different field. Maybe you're a server at a restaurant. I'm just thinking of that as an example, and you love and you want to get into the cybersecurity field because you think that's a growing field. You see there's a lot of potential. You can literally go from this industry and sit down if you're serious about it and are committed for this exam to get you this certificate. A certificate, is that what you receive in the end,
Yeah,
or
it's like
license, or
it's like a certified information security system. It's
okay?
professional, right?
So
And so it's
uh-huh.
a certification. Yeah.
So you can sit down if you're doing something else and sit down and once you pass this, you earn that certification. And then with that, 80-90% as far as doors start opening for you in the cybersecurity world, as far as just getting your foot in there.
Absolutely. And if you're not in the DoD industry, you probably don't know that some of these certifications are actually required to touch any of the systems, right?
Mm,
So if you're not part of, you've never been in the cybersecurity industry, you can pass the test and then you get the associate. You are an associate, then you have to wait about 4 or 5 years. Then you can become the professional, right? But you still have the cert. You see what I mean?
okay. So you
Right?
need
So
like
it's
4 years of experience to get the
the
professionals.
professional. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but like in general, those are like talk about security plus as an example, is another certification. So that is necessary to touch any DoD systems. You need it,
Mm,
right? So if you start that route, then you start getting your certs, you're learning through the process, then now it opens the door, organically, right?
mhm.
You are meeting all the requirements that are needed to work in the DoD, as an example. Yeah.
That's great because if someone wants to get into this field, I mean, you don't even, from the sounds of it, Hector, I mean, and I could be wrong, please correct me. You don't even need a college education as long as, you're committed and you have, I guess I'm sure there's fees and pays you to books and to study and everything and for the exam to sit for it. But as long as you do this, which is not going to be easy, of course, but nothing is, you can get your foot in the door in this industry.
100%. And there's so much content out there that you can leverage to learn. There's some free labs that you can actually do, different trainings, depending, cybersecurity is huge, right? So if you go to red teaming, which is, or blue team or purple team or whatever, they have different scopes, or like doing pen testing or defensive, or, just cyber hunting,
Hmm.
or vulnerability management. There's multiple, right? So whatever you want to specialize, the resources are there for you. You just got to put the mindset and then get going. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So now back to Navteca. I know you said you guys do a lot of things there. Can you go into as far as what projects you're working on?
Yeah, so I have about three or five projects maybe that we are working, and they're in different classifications. I have it right. So one of the things that we have done very successful is on within the wildfire response and visualization. Okay, so I'm not sure if you read about the Hermit Peak wildfire case study.
Hmm.
This is a wildfire that happened in New Mexico back in 2022.
Okay.
Okay, and what Navteca did, we did a case study around the Hermit Peak fire, utilizing immersive, I'm sorry, game engine technology. Okay, and then on top of that, we apply AI and natural language processing. And I'll talk a little bit about that, what we're doing there, which is very exciting. But we use those tools to basically analyze and visualize the event. Okay, so what this approach basically what it's doing is providing insights into the fire behavior and supported decision-making processes for future wildfire management. Okay, so this is after the fact, right? But like we get all the sensory data that we learn, right? And then now we visualizing where the wind is coming, and then you kind of understanding how the fire is behaving, and you take those lessons learned, right? And then you actually apply those to, okay, how could we respond to this fire better? Or more effective, or we could have saved X life or X acres if we would have done this, right? Based on what you've seen. right? So it provides that visual perspective to the fire departments or the emergency teams, so they can make the right decisions in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
So another project that we did was with the Maui wildfires, which you probably know about this one too, right? In Hawaii with
Mm-hmm.
Lahaina. So that was a disaster where Lahaina was basically burned down. So what we did there, we worked with the Western Fire Chief Association, and we did like we provide the actionable insights to improve the wildfire response again and the preparedness. So and it's pretty cool. So I can share the links with you later down the road. Because you can see it and then you can interact. So if you look at the AI, what I was talking about earlier, so we have a product that we developed back in 2020. People didn't know too much about AI. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
kind of a commodity what it is now, right? So Navteca developed this product called Voice Atlas. Okay, and basically it's we call it chat atlas too because it's a voice atlas at the top, but you can chat. So we call it chat atlas, right? And then the chat atlas basically what it does is, say for instance, you have this wildfire visualization, then you can ask questions about that wildfire based on the content that the department put in. So we have this atlas, right? So
Okay.
and then they will basically all the information needed for that fire that they want to share. You know that that's true because it's their report.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this chatbot that will actually you ask questions, and it will tell you based on the information that is on that atlas. So
Oh,
I
interesting.
mean, so it's really safe because it's not going to the internet, it's not going any other source. So hallucination always happen in the AI, but they're reduced because of the source of the information that you get, right?
Okay.
Um, so and that, Voice Atlas, you have multiple customers with Voice Atlas too. We Meta back Facebook back then, right? So they're
Mm-hmm.
using the our product as a SaaS, a software as a service. We have a University of Alaska using it, and then we also have like some other customers, DC.gov, using it as well. But a lot of this happened also in combination working with a partnership between NASA and the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's kind of how we voice Atlas. We work with the, I don't know if you're familiar with the Parker Solar Probe
Okay.
mission. I don't know if you're familiar, but basically we partner with NASA and Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, and we have our chatbot as part of their website. So that basically what it's doing is providing that conversational AI tool that you have accessible information about the mission, and then also the solar activity, and then we're using that to enhance that collaboration and that education engagement with the public. Okay, so they're using that. It's actually pretty cool. You ask about the probe, or you ask about, where what's happening, and it tells you. It's pretty amazing. And this was back in 2020. When we started the AI journey back in 2020. So we were full production, 5 years ago,
Oh, wow.
ahead of, technology.
Yeah.
So very exciting. And then, when we talk about, you mentioned earlier, what do we do, right? So we're working on cloud computing. It's one of our cloud solutions is one of our core, right? But we specialize in what we call high performance computing. Okay, so you have when we talk about cloud services providers and service, cloud service management, in general, they provide you not to getting down to the weeds, but basically you have a computer somewhere in a data center that what they call the cloud, right? And then there you have that virtual machine, and then you use their computes and you pay for that, right? So, but when you're talking about scientific data and modeling and simulation, you need a hefty compute to do that, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
what's called high performance compute, okay, or computing. So we specialize in that. That's our expertise. So we manage all NASA, the cloud computing, high performance compute. We design it, we manage it, and we basically optimize it. So that's a skill that we pride and we're well known. That's kind of some of our expertise. And when you think about it, if you're using a lot of compute power, you want to make sure that you're using it, right? Because if you have, say, for instance, you know, it's like having a Ferrari and you're driving it 25 miles per hour, right? Like, you see
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you gotta drive it, so you're gonna have the full experience. So if you're paying for a high performance compute cluster, if you want to call it, and but you're not using it, you're wasting that money, right? Because so we optimize that to make sure that you are actually paying for what you're using and you're getting the results in a timely manner. Okay, so that's pretty cool, and I think that that's definitely one of the areas that we are excelling right now.
Okay.
And I talked about earlier about giving back, right? And
Hmm.
how important it is for us. So right now we are working on a platform called Open Science Studio. Okay. And the Open Science Studio is a cloud-based platform that we designed to enhance that scientific research by providing accessible, scalable, collaborative tool for data. So basically, think about a lot of open source. If you're not familiar with open source, it's like free software available out there that
Hmm.
a lot of people work together to make it happen, right? So we're bringing all a lot of those open science tools and open source into this platform so scientists can collaborate, and then we are optimizing that, and we're working with the open source community with the goal of aiming to enhance that interoperability among the Earth science platform in general. Right? This is a worldwide thing. So we're very focused on that, and we're very proud of trying to help make, the science community better. Yeah.
That's great, Hector. It sounds like you guys are working on a lot of pretty interesting projects there. I'm curious, you have such a rich career and background. What would you say you're most proud of thus far in your business career?
I would say, the people that I have helped through that brought along with me, right? I think that
Hmm.
that's kind of what I'm very proud of. I have helped many people, as I grow, and get better. So, and sharing is caring, and I think that that's extremely important to me, and just to the next generation, right? So we're working right now for our next generation, so it's really important to me to work really hard so my kids and the next generations can enjoy and this amazing world that we live on. So yes.
That's great. You mentioned all the projects, and I'm sure with all these projects that requires teams and people to actually do the work, right? So how does your Navteca team look like today?
So in terms of size, or I mean, we do have a spectrum of skills, right? So we
Hmm.
have from software developers to cloud engineers, senior cloud engineers, scientists, AI experts, um, software developers, senior as well. So we have kind of project managers, right? So we have a broad spectrum. We are about 20 people strong right now.
Okay. And most of these 20 people are probably on site or where the contract is?
So we have multiple options, right? So we are very focused on provide flexibility to our employees. So we
Hmm.
have some people, if the contract allowed to be remote, we do have them remote. So I have people in California, for example, and if the contract allows, we'll do that, right? So
Hmm.
we have quite a few people here in the DMV area for obvious reasons, right? But we are spread. We have some people in Florida as well. So they can do remote if the government allows us to do that.
Okay. All right. That's great. What advice would you give to someone if they're seeing, your journey and how you started, working in Puerto Rico to overseas to now here and now being in the DMV for a while, and now you becoming president of Navteca. So basically, starting your career corporate ladder and then now owning it as being president, right? But if someone's in a career and they're like, I love this, I love what I do. I don't specifically want to go out and form my own business and my own company, but I want to grow here and then maybe one day become C-level executive and maybe have some type of ownership stake in what I'm doing.
Yeah, so I would say don't give up, right? It is you want to pursue your dreams. You gotta work hard, but you want to leverage the people that you know that will bring you up to your career. And I think, when I look back at relationships, through my career, there's certain people that you say, you know what, this person really helped me. I didn't realize back then, but he was very honest with me and he called it, right? So, and so you look backwards and leveraging those lessons learned, don't be afraid to fail. And if you fail, fail fast and just move on. We fail, I mean, daily, right? So, and it's important not to give up. You know, I tell my kiddos, you live to fight another day, right?
Hmm.
And I think that that's very important. And obviously, stay connected relationships with previous, just give somebody a call. If you think of them right now, just give them a call. They will appreciate that, right? And I think that not giving up, working with the people that you love the most and have that family support as a framework, it will get you anywhere, honestly. So that's kind of been my formula for success, leveraging on the people that I love the most. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned several times now as far as the importance of relationships, and I agree. And it's funny because my wife and I sometimes sit down. I have three boys and we sit down for dinner and we talk, and she mentions she has a ton of friends, all these groups and messages going on. I don't even know how she does it. But me, I guess as a man, maybe it's very different. I'm almost the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And but she's like, relationships, she tells them it takes it's effort, it's work, it's you have to reach, you have to go out there, you have to reach them, you have to contact them, you have to whatever, meet them, email, phone call, text. How do you go about as far as upkeeping these relationships, because
Yes,
I'm sure it takes time and effort, right?
it does take time. So I'll be honest with you, Otto. So when I think about someone, I grab my phone and send a text. Hey, I just want to send you a message. I'm thinking of you. I hope you're doing well.
Just
Like
for no
right there.
reason, just like that, or do you maybe you saw an article or read something, or just like, hey,
Yeah,
just thinking about you.
yeah, exactly. So if I'm talking to you right now, Otto, and I talk about Neil as an example. So when I'm done, I'm saying, hey, I was talking about you and send him a message. So we stay connected, right?
Yeah.
It takes effort. When we talk about business development in general, right? You gotta be out there. So oftentimes 4 to 7 p.m. I'm in a business development, activity,
Mm-hmm.
event, just meeting people and get to know them and building those relationships. Now, some people look for transactional relationships, and then some
Mm-hmm.
people look for long-lasting relationships, right? So depending on the case, you need to adapt, obviously, but our culture in Navteca in particular, we often look for long-lasting relationships. We're building relationship, not transactional, because you gotta work with people that you trust, but most importantly, you love to work with, right? So, and that start with building that relationship. It's not transactional.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like we're building a relationship, and we give each other and we support each other when the time comes, right? So, but yeah,
And just like any relationship, whether it's business or even a personal, it takes time. It's not like you immediately meet a girl or a guy in a bar and we're like, hey, let me take you upstairs, right? Or to
yeah.
it takes time. You got to know each other. Maybe it takes months, or with business relationship, weeks or even years, just to see for something fruition come about.
You know what? Absolutely. You say it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, going to your point about, working it, those little things, like if I'm thinking of you and I send you a text message, it's just a little, it takes seconds,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an honest gesture of that you actually have a relationship with someone, you're thinking of them and you're letting them know,
Yeah.
right? And that's key. To me, that's key. Somebody send me a text and say, hey, Hector, I'm thinking of you. I say, oh, hey, I'm thinking of you too. And I send a message to you. I'm glad to hear from you, right? So,
You don't get that, I'm sure, right? I mean, I know I don't get that much as far as these messages. Hey, I'm just thinking about you.
yeah, well, and that's true too, right? So, but if somebody's thinking about you, it's an honest gesture. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You feel that, oh, you know what? It sounds interesting, but if somebody's thinking about me, that's cool. So he really value me, and I made a difference for him somewhere, somehow,
yeah,
right? Or her. I mean, in general, right? So it doesn't matter who,
yeah.
boy or
You,
girl.
you were just also mentioning, Hector, as far as failure and having setbacks, and it just made me think. All through life, whether in business, outside of business, personal, we all have setbacks and failures. Some at a different scale, little, large. Any big failure you can think of right now or setback, and how'd you deal with it? What'd you learn from that?
Yeah, so back way when so we were building a product, right? So I thought I said, you know what, this is a great product that we're gonna build. So I spent a lot of time on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a cybersecurity driven product, and I learned a lot, right? And I put a lot of, effort on it and my team too. But it comes to find out that it wasn't attractive to other people to use. It wasn't fitting a niche or solving a real world problem. Okay, it was
Mm-hmm.
solving a particular problem, right? But not a big problem. So, and it might work for some people, but in general, it didn't to go. Okay, so I learned a lot about that. Then also, I was like, it doesn't matter, that you fail. What matters is that you tried, right? And then now I take what I learned from there, and then the next product that I build, it's definitely going to be better. And now I'm looking to solve a real world solutions, which is what Navteca is doing, right? And then I apply all that I learned, and obviously we're talking about money, time, that there's always money and time involved,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you're talking about all that, and then you take that, you still make some progress in certain areas that you can reuse and build the other next product faster, right? So I think that that's one of the major failures that I had where I was like, man, I wish I knew that this is what's going to take off because we spent about 6 months working on this and it didn't work out. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so true. I agree with you. It's like this famous saying, I might be butchering, but it's I don't fail, I'm just learning, right? And you're always just learning and moving and pivoting what to do, what not to do next time.
Well, and you can't be afraid of it because if you're afraid, that's where innovation comes from,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that I said this before, but innovation, it's not a choice. Is that how that's how we stay ahead, right? We have to innovate. So that's why, if you look at the DoD and the government acquisition, mechanisms right now, they're changing drastically. And the reason is because they're looking for a more innovative way and easier to access innovative technologies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of your previous episode, you were talking about the government, bureaucracy and how you get certain things, to the government. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, there's a lot of processes that they have, right? And then if you think about that now, the government is kind of losing up some of those guardrails a little bit, obviously within the tolerance realm, to make sure that they have the ability to procure commercial solutions that are solving some of their problems, right? So and so that's part of the this innovation. The government realize how important it is, right? And then obviously you have DARPA and you have some other agencies that are working in the forefront of innovation, DIU as an example. But the idea is that we're making those innovative solutions quicker, and faster that acquisition. So it's very interesting how the landscape is changing.
And now that you mentioned, Hector, as far as the government bureaucracy, it just made me think. Now with this new government administration, only a couple of months in, um, forget what the media tells you. I just take that out of out of the equation. But you being on the field there, hand to hand with them, have you noticed any change as far as how they're doing business this time around?
So I think that they are very focused right now on what's gonna make us better, of
Okay.
what is important for the mission. So sometimes, if like if you've never been in the field, if you've never been in Iraq or in the war field, you probably don't understand how important it is to have the right tools for the right job. Like
Mm-hmm.
you gotta have some stuff like, if you don't have the right tools available, then we're doing a disservice to our, soldiers, right?
Sure.
So the idea is that, what I feel is that there are some changes on how to focus on what we really, really, really need. And going back to the relationship comment, tying those together is about how do we make sure that we have the right relationship. In this case, will be the right things for the right purpose,
Mm-hmm.
like the right mission. So I feel that the new government in general obviously is affecting some of the small business too. Because if they were doing a lot of the project management services, they were tagged and affected by those, obviously. But in general, if I feel that I looked at as a small business, possible opportunity for me to succeed and take on new challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the positive way of that. A lot of people would disagree. Some people in the audience will disagree. But from my upcoming, I take this as a challenge to excel and, make a difference on whatever I have been dealt with. Like I need to deal with this. So
Yeah.
it'll be good. I think that, for some of the small business that are focused on innovation, they will thrive.
Yeah. No, but I agree. I mean, there's always going to be disagreement, especially when it comes into politics. That's why people's like, don't talk about politics.
Hmm.
But that's it. I mean, literally, if you want to become president, half the country is not going to like you, and the other half, hopefully more than the other half, likes you, that you win the vote and you become president of whatever nation, if it's a true democracy as far as voting is concerned. So, what people feel, how it's going to happen all day, every day.
Absolutely. I just, I hope that, from the government perspective, I feel that we have one mission and one common goal, which is keep America safe
Mm-hmm.
and, our freedom, we're not taking it for granted and we're not being complacent, which is one of our, I would say is a big weakness. If you start getting complacent, then bad things happen. So, it's amazing. The United States the number one, country in the world. And I think that innovation plays a big factor of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Coming to an end here soon, Hector, what would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today at Navteca?
I would say that talent it's a challenge for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find the right team member that shared the same, vision, culture, and that mission focused mentality. I think that's very challenging, especially how evolving technology is becoming. So we are focusing quite a bit on at least coming back part of my vision as a president, right? And to scale our innovation and focus on deepening our mission impact and position the company leading the force of that science, technology, and work with the government. We're trying to build a roadmap for our employees to continue to excel internally and start bringing kind of like educating them, sharing our knowledge. So we start building, I would say, like a bigger family, right?
Mm-hmm.
A force that we are all sharing, you know, uh, sharing agility and transparency and that deep respect for the mission that we actually support, right? And I think that that's very valuable. It's a challenge for everybody, but we're working really hard to make it happen. Yeah.
That's great. Are there any habits or traits you feel that you have that have helped you in business, or maybe just outside of business, maybe just in your personal life?
Yeah. So when you talk about your career and you talk as you grow through the process, at the beginning, oftentimes you're in the individual contributor. Okay, so then you are an individual contributor, and then you start moving towards, if you go the right path, now you're becoming a leader, and your success is not individual anymore. Your success is somebody else's success, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I pride myself, I think one of my superpowers is to be able to, I specialize in building high performance team, right? In the technology arena.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy doing that very much so. So one of my missions with Navteca is continue that, and continue to building high performance team that we share all our, common mission and my vision to succeed and obviously to help our country.
So, with your role as president, Hector, now, you're mentioning earlier how a lot of your time in the evenings from 4 to 7 or so, it's in business development, going to maybe events or conferences. I'm not sure. And then you just mentioned now as far as building the team. So, and I know you mentioned as far as the other two founders of Navteca before. So, for you personally, is it, I guess during the day, is it building that team, assembling that team, putting the right people in the right place, and then in the afternoon more business developing, bringing in business and new contracts for the company?
Absolutely. So we do, it's a mix of both. Some days we do the BD in the beginning and so it varies. But the idea is to make sure that we find partners, right, that they want to do this long-term relationship and that we
Mm-hmm.
share the same passion to utilize technology for good. That's our passion. And that's, Shayna shared the same passion as well as Ramon. So we all share the same passion of using technology for good. And I think, it's really hard, Otto, like when you were talking about, okay, well, you have this passive income working at night, but oftentimes, I don't know if it happened to you or some of the audience, but my mind is thinking through the night too. Like I was like, I'm working too in my mind and trying to figure things out. And so, and you help me plan my day. But, it's I think that with Navteca, we're going to make a lot of changes for good and help a lot of the customers bring these new technologies. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, your mind's always working. I forgot just the other day, I think yesterday, I was doing something. I might have been with one of my children somewhere. I can't even remember. And I just started thinking about, oh, this client, and then for this. And then it's like, okay, I need to make a note of myself as far as remembering to do this once I'm in front of a computer.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, well, and you planning your day too sometimes, or sometimes I said, you know what, I should have texted this person because I was thinking of them. So let me just do that. I mean, but in general, I think that, the days, especially when you're a business owner, it is, you do a lot of work,
Yeah.
you do it because you love it, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What does the future look like for you and Navteca? What are you most excited about for the next couple of years?
So I'm very excited to diversify our customers. So we want to break into the DoD. That's been my passion, and I want to do that. So we do obviously supporting NASA, USGS, NOAA, and some of the agencies, federal agencies. But now I want to pivot and do quite a bit of work in the DoD. So that's my goal. We're gonna break into the DoD. I want to bring new technologies and new kind of I'll say team members to help some of the critical missions that the DoD is doing at this time.
That's great. You've worked with the DoD in the past, right?
Yeah, that's been on my whole career. So
Oh, so like you said, you have those relationships.
yes, yes, yes. That's my whole career. I work for, like I said, Navy, Army, Coast Guard, Marines, Army, Air Force, DARPA. I did some work at DARPA too. So it is my passion, and we want to diversify and try to get some of those customers.
Okay, perfect. When you're not busy working, Hector, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
So I like to read, I like to work out, and I like to spend time with my family. In not any particular order. So they're all number one priorities, right? So I work out when I can,
Okay.
if it is for the day, but I spend a lot of time with my kids, especially when they're in sports and whatnot. I enjoy watching them, and I have a swimmer and I have three gymnasts.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, so
Okay.
they're very competitive here in the DMV. So for the audience, if you're in a different state, and you move to the DMV, just be aware, everything is competitive here, from education all the way through sports.
Yeah.
It's, so, but I enjoy. So I spend a lot of time with my kiddos.
When it comes to reading, typically what do you like to read?
So I like to read about technology,
Okay.
but with technology, so specifically around articles related to AI and machine learning,
Okay.
and also about professional development in general. So I do have uh, I like to read about other people's success,
Yeah.
you know, and learn from that as well. So
Yeah. I agree. Again, that was one of the reasons for this show was just learning from other people, even though they're in totally different industry, just because I hear what someone is doing. And even though my business is commercial real estate, sometimes I use that to my business and change things up a little bit, right?
absolutely, yes. And and I would say it's so important because you can buy a lot of things, but you cannot buy time, and
Mm-hmm.
that you spend with your family and the people that you love, it's very important. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hector, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really a pleasure. If people want to learn more about you personally and what you're doing at Navteca, where can they go to find more information, please?
Sure. So they can actually follow me on LinkedIn. You can look at Hector Collazo and you'll see me there, Navteca. Or you can go to navteca.com and they will find me there. Or you can go to voiceatlas.com or opensciencestudio.com. So we're all in there, and we're also in social media as well. So just look for Navteca and you'll find us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again for your time.
Absolutely, Oda. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay, bye bye.